91.3 WVKR, Independent Radio, Poughkeepsie, New York. You are tuned into Local Motion here each and every Wednesday from 4 to 6 p.m. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the Local Motion on 91.3 WVKR YouTube channel, as well as giving it a like on the Facebook page. We just heard new music from the Lumineers, Where We Are, which comes off the latest release, Bright Side. We have the producer and engineer on the line here. Let's get David Barron on air. David?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, wonderful. Can you hear us okay? Hear me okay?
I hear you perfectly. Thank you, Rita.
You're welcome. Wonderful. Let me do a brief intro, if I may, and start off by saying record producer, film composer, musician, arranger, engineer David Barron has worked with countless musicians. He's recently produced, engineered, and mixed the Lumineers' newest album, Bright Side. He's worked with Shania Twain, Shawn Mendes, Meghan Trainor, Lenny Kravitz, Lana Del Rey, Jade Bird, among many others. David owns Sun Mountain Recording Studios in Boyceville, just outside of Woodstock, New York. And with that, a warm welcome back to Local Motion, David Barron.
Thank you, Rita. Thank you so much for having me. That was quite an introduction. I appreciate it.
Oh, my goodness. Well, there's so much to say. You're having quite a career in music, and I am a huge fan of everything that you put out, whether it's your solo work or working with all these many artists that you work with. But first of all, let's start this off by wishing you a happy birthday, David.
Yeah, well, it was not quite my birthday. I'm a leap year baby, so I never have an actual birthday. Well, I have it every 4 years. I have a real birthday.
So you're really young.
I'm getting older, though. That's true. I'm still not legal.
Right. You're still super, super young. I understand by one of your posting that you received a very special gift from Reed Hayes.
Yeah, Reed is a great friend of mine who I went to Oberlin Conservatory with, and he, strangely enough, he's a very successful TV music composer. He composed like the Fox football theme, da-da-da-da-da.
Oh, wow.
A million other big TV themes, and he's a big synth collector who toured with Vince Clarke a bunch of times. He does a radio show every week with Vince Clarke, too. And the other day I was talking to him on the phone, and I was like, I used this piece of gear in Toronto, and I loved it, but it's so rare, it's so crazy. He didn't say anything, but he happened to have one in his closet.
Oh, my gosh.
And so he just sent it to me, and the very next day it showed up with a happy birthday message, and it was super nice.
Oh, what a beautiful gift. What a nice friend.
I mean, it's a crazy gift, but I think, it did make me very happy, and and it was very unexpected, let's put it that way.
Right. Yeah, no, I have no doubt, but what a really nice gesture and a really nice friend. So when do you celebrate your birthday if you're a leap year baby? Do you celebrate it February 28th or March 1st?
It kind of depends when other people will celebrate with me. I'm good to celebrate for 3 or 4 days,
yeah,
around February 28th. So a lot of times it's up to, what the family's doing, and is it a Saturday, all those kinds of things. I mean, this year was really low key, but it was still sweet. We made a little dinner, and now that Oscar's getting bigger, he's more, he's participating more. He's 13 now, so.
Wow. And he's becoming quite a musician himself.
He's turning out to be a great musician, and a lot is thanks to his local teachers as well as his teachers. He goes to Bard Prep, and Bard Prep is just turning out to be fantastic.
Oh yeah. Great program there. And it's so nice that they have something like that in the Hudson Valley. It's a beautiful, beautiful program. So, David, I want to just always go back a little. You've been on the show. I have you at least once a year because you're always coming up with innovative and exciting new releases. But I always like to back up in case people haven't heard your history. I always start with how you started in music, and you have a very unique beginning because of your father, Aaron Barron.
That's right. I grew up mostly in Woodstock until I was about, I think, 11 or 12. My dad had a remote recording truck called Location Recorders, and he put it together with his partner, Larry Dahlstrom, in the late 60s. And amongst the live records that they recorded was Stage Fright. And
wow.
Albert Grossman found out about the truck, thought it was really exciting, and bought the business from my dad. And that's how we ended up in Woodstock. But I grew up around, all the Levons and all those sort of amazing people that used to just be in Woodstock, Todd Rundgren. And I was a little kid, but I remember the Joyous Lake was super active. We would go over there, and my dad took me everywhere. He was a believer in sharing his world with me, so I saw so much music, and I saw so many recordings, and I saw so many rehearsals. And my dad literally, had recorded things like the Allman Brothers at Fillmore East, B.B. King at Cook County Jail, and Chicago Live, and Tina Turner, and
Mingus at Carnegie Hall,
and Louis Armstrong, and Sinatra, but also a lot of rock records like Blue Oyster Cult and Alice Cooper and Jefferson Airplane, Grateful Dead. So I didn't see all of those because I was too young, but I did get to see a lot, sort of on the periphery. I didn't really know what was going on, but everyone seemed very happy and very busy.
So it was almost natural for you to do what you're doing now. When did you start playing an instrument?
I started pretty young. I think initially I started playing, just messing around on a piano. That my parents bought a little player piano because my dad thought it was a cool thing. And I started messing around and learning songs by ear. And then I actually started on the violin. Mm-hmm. I wasn't ever a great violinist, but I learned how to play that. And then I begged to play piano. Mm-hmm. And the wife of the minister at the Methodist Church gave me lessons.
Wow.
and she, she was lovely, and eventually, I really took to it. I loved playing piano, and I studied it pretty seriously as a high school student, and then I went to school for music, so that really sort of put me, that kind of set me up to be a musician. And all this recording stuff, which I've been doing in the past, I'd say 10, 15 years, more and more, sort of like a return to what my father used to do, mm-hmm. and sort of more of what my dad's role was. Because I wasn't rebelling against them at all. I was around great engineers, and I was always like, well, I'm going to be a musician, okay, because it's what I want to do. Mm-hmm. And I did that for years.
And you studied classical, yes?
I did. I went to Oberlin Conservatory as a classical pianist, and then while I was there, I started studying electronic music and basically anything that they would to teach me. I was for it, mm-hmm. and I loved Oberlin. It was an amazing school, and it really does give you a great background, and you meet amazing people like Reed Hayes, and they really do get you set up for being a good musician. Mm-hmm. And I thought I was better than I was, actually, and then I got out of Oberlin and went to New York and kind of got kicked around a little bit, mm-hmm. and so it's been a few levels of like, how do you get to the next step? Mm-hmm. But the recording thing, I really do thank my dad for teaching me how to balance. Like when I was really little, we were in a garage in Woodstock. We lived in a little house in Woodstock, and I remember he set up a Shure mixer and a little 4-track, and he said, "Okay, I'm going to teach you how to mix." And I must have been like 8. And he was trying to teach me how to balance on those little rotary dials on these little portable mixers. Uh-huh. And it stuck with me, though, because he was methodical, and he was an electrical engineer, so he had a way of thinking about things that was maybe different than, someone who's less technical. Like, I'm not an electrical engineer at all, and I've always admired my dad for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Are you doing this with Oscar? Because I've seen your post photos of Oscar in the studio. Is he interested in learning how you're recording and mixing and working with all these great talents?
He's super interested in the process, for mm-hmm. sure. He's hung out. He's assisted. We did a string quartet session for a rock record, I'd say about 3 months ago, and my assistant was Archie, who comes from Woodstock, too, Donna Lewis's son.
Oh, yeah.
And he assisted, and then Oscar assisted Archie.
I love it.
I had two of sort of the up-and-coming kids around, and they were amazing. They got the scores together, they moved the mics, they did all the things that you need to do, and it feels so good to pass along knowledge, because mm-hmm. It was passed along to me by a lot of people, especially my dad, and I had a mentor named Gershon Kingsley who passed a lot along to me too, and I'm starting to do that more and more, and I'm realizing it's probably one of the most valuable things you can give someone.
Mm-hmm.
Just sort of being around, learning things, being around people who are making records, being around people who have a seriousness about what they do.
Exactly.
And that really seems to, it makes me so happy. It probably would be embarrassing for him to hear that, but it makes me really happy to show him things, and he's very bright, and it's been great. And Archie, too. Archie's now at NYU studying film scoring, but having him in the studio is, it's a joy, and it's also, it's a continuum.
Yeah, absolutely. I think your father must be so proud if he knew his grandson would be following, yet being the third Baron to be doing this, and really think about that, right?
I think my dad would have enjoyed this part of our lives. Unfortunately, he passed in 2019, but I think he would have loved to see that. I've been thinking recently, especially with all the records we're working on, with all the artists that are coming here, with all the people that are here in the area, there's sort of a return, a renaissance to Woodstock in the area, and we're never going to go back to the way it was in the 70s, 60s, and 70s just because the business has changed immeasurably, and big recording studios are out of fashion and stuff like that. But there's so much creative talent in the area, and there's so many resources for people in the area, and I can just feel that things are getting better and better, and the more people that make records that people hear of, it's sort of like gravity. It starts bringing in other people, and then, the National comes in, and it's just sort of like we've always had amazing people.
Right. And
the list is too long to name, but I feel like the past, say 5 years, it's really changed. COVID slowed down the sort of visible nature of everything, but a lot of people moved here in COVID. There's a lot of talent that wasn't even here 2 years ago, and that's very, very exciting.
It is very exciting. And look at the studios that we have in the area and what you yourself, David, have brought to the area by moving back here, because I know you lived in Manhattan for a while, and coming back here and building up Sun Mountain and having these, the Lumineers just came and recorded at your studio.
Well, yes, they did. They did their whole record, Soup to Nuts, here, and Wesley did Vignettes, his whole solo record here, and I did another solo record with Jeremiah Freites here. And we've
Piano, it's lovely.
Thank you so much. We've done a lot of records here, and a lot of that is also thanks to Simon Felice, who's been my partner on a lot of these rock records. He had a dream to sort of expand the production world out, and he was friends with the Lumineers, and they were huge fans of the Felice brothers, and so he brought me in kind of slowly. I initially played keyboards with them, and then I ended up doing some mixing with them, and on this last record, it was really the four of us sat in a room and made a record. And that was pretty beautiful. And a lot of people came, like Byron Isaacs, who is a mega talent. He plays with them, and he's
somewhere in Europe right now on a stage with them.
He is. I talked to him yesterday, and he was absolutely lovely. They're doing great. The record's doing really well. Yeah. I really feel great about the fact that we do records here, Soup to Nuts. We used to not. A few years ago, the studio was kind of like a private studio. It is a private studio, but it was really private. And then we did a big renovation and built a vocal booth, then built another room that has the grand piano and drums in it with 16-foot vaulted ceilings. And all of a sudden, the facility is one of the best facilities I've ever worked in. It's not, definitely in the top 5.
Wow.
And that is... it's an incredible resource to have.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of people come here and record with us. I just worked with an artist from Europe who was here doing a beautiful, beautiful record, and unusual record, and stunning. And people are going to continue. I have a lot of bookings, so people are coming to the area and they're loving it. A lot of times people come here and then they end up buying places, or they end up coming back with their families. It's a special place.
Well, listen, if people follow you on social media, David Baron Music, the photos that you post, if that isn't enticing enough, your property is overlooking the Ashokan Reservoir.
That's right. We bought this place initially, we were in Manhattan, of course. I had a studio in Manhattan, and my wife worked at Entertainment Weekly, the magazine. And I didn't want to buy in the city, and I had a rent-stabilized apartment, so we're like, let's go look up in the country. And we looked at a lot of houses, and a lot of them are okay, whatever. And then we went to this property that I'm at now, and I just hear my wife. She's standing. She didn't even see the house. She was just looking at the view. She said, "We're buying this house," and she was right. Yeah. Of course, you buy the view, and views are the most exceptional thing. Apparently, the view from my house and my neighbor's house, the cabin below, is a really famous view from an "I Love New York" commercial that aired for many, many years, where they flew a helicopter over the Ashokan.
Oh, wow.
And it was the opening of the I Love New York campaign. So our view has actually been memorialized. And there's only 4 houses on the whole mountain, so it's pretty exclusive.
Wow. Oh, my gosh. It's beautiful. I highly recommend people follow David Barron because the people that you work with, fantastic, but your views, and it must be so serene and so comfortable for people to come to you, and so relaxing because you're really out there. You've got nothing around you, and it's just so serene, and just that in and of itself must help any recording process, I would guess.
I think it does. I mean, I was in Manhattan. My old studio used to be in Midtown on 46th and Broadway in a hotel. Mm-hmm. And it was exactly the opposite. In Times Square, it was completely crazy. It had that energized sort of vibe.
Right.
This place is more like, okay, we're going to work together. It almost feels like camp, mm-hmm. like a really beautiful camp, and people can really concentrate. People can go outside. They can go now the rail trail, which is like probably one of the most amazing public projects I've ever seen, is right near us, and that's people love that. But people really take to it, and I think what happens is they slow down a little bit from their urban life or for their regular life or their touring life, and it becomes kind of like a big team effort to make a record, mm-hmm. and that the magic of the landscape, the magic of the beauty of it, is stunning. I mean, when Shania was here, she came with her husband, and we were driving around we would listen to all our mixes while driving past the river, and we'd stop and visit my neighbor's horses, and it becomes like you have this incredible life with people for the period of time that you're working on a record. And I feel like some of that makes it into the record. You can feel the energy of the team, mm-hmm. feel the energy of the land. Right.
Yeah, no, it all makes sense. It absolutely does. The other thing that I think you do so very well, I don't use this word, and whenever I talk to Byron about you, we both agree about you being a musical genius. Your work comes through so eloquently when you compose a film. The last film that I saw, and I saw you perform at Colony, that you were part of, is Here Is Better, and that was part of the Woodstock Film Festival.
Well, thank you for the kind words. That was Here Is Better is a wonderful film about PTSD, the military, and I worked on it. I composed most of the score. Jeremiah Freites from the Lumineers. We used some pieces that we adapted from Piano for it, and then I wrote a song with Josin. Josin's this amazing neoclassic singer. She's on the latest Olaf Arnold's record, and she's one of the rising stars of that movement. And the last song, Jeremiah, co-wrote, and we performed that at the with Cara, and we performed that at Colony, and that was amazing. It was like super fun, and it's funny. That's like probably the only live gig I've been to. Yeah, Cara DeGuardi and I played it live, but it was so fun. It was like, because with COVID and everything, you didn't see anybody, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, it's a film festival, and we're playing live, and she's a great singer. Yeah. I know she was American Idol. She was a judge on American Idol, and she's written a zillion beautiful, incredibly famous songs, but she herself can sing. She's got pipes.
She does have pipes. She does. It was very apparent that night. It was so nice. I think it was one of my first outings, too, because the film festival did it so safely. You all had to be vaccinated. You had to wear a mask. So you felt kind of good being there, and it was so nice to have the film festival in person again, because the year prior, it really wasn't, other than a drive-in
Yeah,
theater and mostly at home kind of a thing. So yeah, so that film was great, and I still when I think of you, think of the composition you did for Keely and Dew.
Yeah, I love that. I love that score too. Yeah, I mean, I don't score as many films. Well, I'm working on one right now, but I don't score that many films now. I've gotten so busy doing records, so I do only maybe one film a year.
Can you tell
like
us what you're working on now as far as film composition?
The main project that I'm working in film right now is with Gregory Colbert, who's an artist, and I've been working on it for quite some time, and it's a very large-scale film, so I mean, it's got Lawrence Fishburne on the music soundtrack. We've got Cigarettes After Sex. I collaborated with Greg Gonzalez from them, and a lot of other incredible artists and talent. And yeah, we're deep in that, but that's probably not going to be finished for about 2 years.
Oh,
and
wow.
I'm working on an animated film too, and it looks like that's probably not going to come out for about maybe 2.5 years, believe it or not. The animated films take a really, really, really long time.
Wow, yeah, that is a long time. So that must be hard to balance. Do you say, okay, today or this week I'm working on this film composition, and the next week I've got a band coming in? You must be...
Well, it's very scheduled. Everything's scheduled. Everything has its day. It's like, I worked on commercial music for many, many years.
Yep.
I used to do a lot of jingles and TV scoring, and I ran a company that did that in New York City.
Barron and Barron.
Yeah, with my dad first, and then later on Edison. And I really learned the importance of like time management, or what do they call it now? Executive functioning, or something like that. What are they calling it? That new form of coach that costs $1 million. So basically, when I have a schedule, I run it very strictly, and I know what's happening that day. I know what my expectations are that day. Now with records, it's a little more difficult because sometimes you plan to cut a song and it takes 1 day. Sometimes you plan to cut a song and it takes 5 days. It's just the reality of life. Sometimes you cut a song and you cut it again, and then you cut it again. I used to feel bad about that, and then started reading and watching all these music documentaries, of which there's a million great ones now. And the one thing I noticed, even with this latest Beatles thing, is like, man, everybody has to work hard.
Yeah.
Nobody has it. Nobody gets like it's never right out of the box. You know what I mean? It's never something that it's always a struggle. To some extent, it's a fun struggle, but you got to work on it. And like when you read about like the Stones recorded "Start Me Up" like 6 times, you're like, kind of makes sense in a weird way, because sometimes you have to things have to align.
Yeah.
And when things really align, it's probably one of the most beautiful things in the world that can ever happen to a group of people. I mean, I always think of records as sort of like, think about it as like a photographic album or something. It's like a bunch of snapshots of a certain group of people at a certain point in time at a certain place.
Right.
And for everything to come together, like, say, to make a song that everyone loves, or even a song that you love, because a lot of times the favorite songs on records are not necessarily the hit songs. They're just something that kind of affects the group emotionally in a certain way. And of course, if there's hits, it's always super nice, but that's so external to what we do.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like we make them, then other people sell them.
Right.
Other people market them. Other people figure it out. Like, so my thing, or the philosophy that I have now, is you should really just enjoy every moment, which is something that Phil Ramone, a wonderful producer who actually was also my dad, trained my dad.
Oh, wow.
My dad used to work at A&R Recording, which was Phil Ramone's studio in the city, and that's where my dad got trained to be a recording engineer. And I ran into Phil Ramone at a Universal Christmas party many years ago. I mean, before obviously Phil died, and told him who I was, who my dad was, and he was like, he took me aside, and he said, "Look, let me just tell you something. Enjoy everything. Enjoy every moment. Enjoy every artist. Enjoy every song." He's like, make the most of it all.
Yeah. Good advice. Good advice.
Yeah, I mean, I looked up to him. Obviously, he's a hero of mine. I mean, he recorded, that Stan Getz that like Bossa Nova record. He's the engineer on it. I mean, he's a psycho producer. Obviously, he produced all those Billy Joel and Paul Simon records and many other things. But when you learn about the breadth of what that guy did, he was literally a musical genius. He was a prodigy as a kid, a violin prodigy, and then he became a producer, a recording engineer producer.
And legendary. I mean, my goodness, like you say, I mean, you can't even list all the things he's worked on. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to meet the legends, you know. I certainly look up to him, and that kind of advice that's the kind of advice that, you know, you're like, oh, I'm just getting started in this business.
And now, David, you can pass that on to the young ones.
I actually think that you sort of have to go with that as a model. Okay, we're going to be doing this thing. This is our lives. You know, it's funny. Like, I've experienced this a few times. A few years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I had a meeting with Lenny Kravitz about doing orchestrations, like live strings, and some brass for his records, doing an orchestra stuff. And he came and visited me in New York because he was doing something, and I said, and I was like, you know, we don't have to record an orchestra. I said we could use samples and it'll be fine. It's like probably not going to make that much of a difference. And he looks at me and he said, I want to go to Paris, and I want us to have an orchestra, and I want us to stand in front of the orchestra, and then I want to go and have a beautiful dinner.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, okay. He's like, because this is our lives. When are we going to do this? He's like, this is going to be what we remember. And we did that. We went to Paris. Oh. We recorded an orchestra. I have all these fantastic memories and photos. And then we went to a fabulous dinner at and I was like, he's right. I mean, it'll always be a highlight.
It will, yeah.
You got to carry that with you. You know, I don't see music as the great struggle. I see it as like it's almost like a team sport for me. Mm-hmm. It's like get great people on your team and love the people on your team. Love where you work. You know, if there's something that's bothering you, like take care of it. Like just iron it out. Like never let things fester. Just like, you know, you sort of have to flow.
Right. And you're absolutely right. Forge forward and all of that. How'd you meet Lenny?
Weirdly, I met Lenny in my studio in New York. He came in for some reason, not to my room, some other room. Apparently he was in like the main room and somebody was working there and he didn't like the music. And so one of the assistants said, oh, you might like the guy in the back. He's really weird, which was me. And so Lenny's like, okay, let me meet the guy in the back. And I had all my synths. I collect a lot of vintage synths. And back then I had a crazy room full of synths. And Lenny walks in with this British guy assistant. I forgot his name, but really super nice guy. And he listens to what I'm working on, which is one of my pieces. And he's like, oh my God, man, this is like space funk. And I was like, oh, cool. He's like, we should do some space funk together. And I'm like, all right, whatever. I didn't think much of it. Like, I was just like, it was cool to meet Lenny, but, I didn't figure I'd hear from him. And I'd say it was probably at least 3 months later, I get a call from his manager, and they're like, Lenny wants you to come in tomorrow to work with him and Jennifer Lopez.
Wow.
And so we did. I took some synths up to, I think, Sony, maybe, studios in New York, and we did a session with her and whatever. I don't even think the stuff came out. And then he was like, man, this is really fun. We should just keep recording. And then we basically studio hopped for, I think, about 2 weeks and recorded all this crazy, some stuff probably got released, some stuff didn't. I mean, a lot of it was like, hey, let's be in the playground. And he had the cash to afford being in the playground.
Right. Yeah, sure.
So, and then, obviously we've had a long history after that.
And he lives in the Bahamas too, right? It's one of his residences, and you've been lucky enough.
He has a place in the Bahamas and one in Paris. And the Bahamas is where he's been for the bulk of this thing, and Craig Ross. But Gail, who plays bass with him, is in Kingston, and she's one of the gems.
Yeah, isn't she? Oh my gosh, I haven't seen her in quite some time. Had her on the show, I think about a year ago or something, and I think she might have just come home from Paris herself or something. So, she's a true gem. She truly is, and. Yeah, I mean, Lenny, and you still have this thing going with him. You've also worked on this crazy big hit. I don't know how many billions of views it has now. Meghan Trainor, you and Kevin.
Oh, Kevin Cadis and I are still doing a lot of stuff together. In fact, I have a call with him tonight.
You have like a diamond award or something, right? Nobody even knew what a diamond was, you know?
I got a diamond award. It's sitting in the music room upstairs near the piano. But yeah, it was fun. But, that was very unexpected because when I worked on that song, she was unsigned. There was no money. She wasn't trying to be an artist. She was trying to be a songwriter. And so what got released actually is the demo. It's just Kevin and I. And it was never like sent to a fancy mix or anything else like that. It was just done. And L.A. Reid believed in the song so much, he was like, I think it's a hit. Everybody wanted to change it, including Megan. Everybody. Everyone wanted to add like a famous hip-hop drum programmer, whatever. Like the typical things that happen once people think, oh, they might have a hit. And a lot of publishers turned it down because they thought it didn't have a hook. That was the main complaint about it.
Oh my gosh!
My main lesson for that, and this one I would love to share, is that if you believe something is good, it is good. And if you believe, and a lot of people will tell you to change something, especially if they are in the game themselves, like another producer, another engineer, another artist, a different A&R person. Anybody that has an agenda is going to have their way of listening to things and way of hearing things where they most likely will think that it should be changed to be right, because from their perspective, that's how they feel. The really strong records, the really strong projects are ones where it's a super small team, like Lumineers. It was literally the core team was 4 people. And, you end up making all the decisions, you believe in everything you do, and no one can change it. No one can tell you, hey, let's put these drums in time, or you should sound more like whatever the biggest hit is on the radio, which is a very common creative direction. Like, you have to believe in your stuff so much. It's almost religious. You have to believe in the people you're with so much that all that chatter that you're going to get from everybody is just disregarded. Now, kudos to L.A. Reid for saying, you know what, you're all wrong. It's a hit. I'm putting it out.
And the song, by the way, that we're talking about is all about the bass.
All about that bass, actually.
That bass. All about that bass. And if you look, YouTube, billions of views. With a B, not a million. It's got billions of views worldwide.
Yeah, no, that was a huge single. And, and that's probably, that's like winning the lottery, honestly. It's very unusual to have a song that's that big. There's only been less than 20 diamond singles in American history.
Is that right?
And I think that was the 15th diamond single. Yeah.
Something like that. Wow. And you have one sitting in your studio.
Me, Megan, and Kevin. Yeah, we all have one. And I think it's funny. It's great. Luckily, before my dad passed, I brought the Diamond Award to New Jersey, where he was living. He was in a nursing home. And we took him out to eat at like the Crab Shack or something, and he's sitting there with the Diamond Award on the table with, and he's like, I don't know what it is, but it looks fancy. And I said, yeah, it's fun. Look, that stuff is luck to some extent. I love making music, and I think, you can't make music thinking, oh, I'm going to go have a hit, or I'm going to try to have a hit. You got to make music because you love making music. And then if something becomes a hit, man, celebrate. The Hallucinogenics, the Matt Mason song, I forget. Now that was a number 1 rock, number 1 alt, huge streamer, and I had no idea it was recorded here at Sun Mountain too. And who knew? And Brightside was number 1 rock, number 1 alt, number 1 AAA.
Oh, in all the countries in the world too. Brightside is worldwide. It's everywhere.
It was huge, and that's totally just getting started. As they tour. One of the big, I would say, setbacks that we've had as a business or as a group is that during COVID, people couldn't promote, tour, and that really is that's what leads to music discovery. I know everyone says TikTok is the main place for music discovery, and I'm okay with that. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. It just people discover old songs and it becomes popular. It doesn't seem lasting. But when people go out to see a concert and they sing along and they have amazing life experience, it's so different than being on a phone or being on a computer. You're with everybody and you're having a communal You're having
the
a real
energy,
experience.
the energy that flows between the musicians and the audience itself, that's what you remember. And then you go buy the album and listen to it more and start singing along. And it's just that vibe, you know, it's,
Well, it becomes, it goes into your soul. You know what I mean? It's visceral, and it makes you love music in a way that, I mean, I've been remembering concerts I went to where I wasn't crazy about the artist, but, you know, maybe my friends or my dad or whatever, somebody was like, okay, well, just see him, you know, whatever. You're at a festival. And sometimes you'll see someone where you never understood their music, and you see them live, and then you're like, oh, my gosh, like, I love this artist. Now I understand.
Yeah.
And our brain rewards us with when we are confronted with things that we're familiar with. So, like, if you've heard a song many times, you're going to end up liking it more and more as time goes on, and that's proven, unless it's an annoying song like Baby Shark or something, but I think that's a top streaming song in the world.
Oh,
I still don't like it that much.
exactly.
But,
Yeah, no, I don't
but
listen to any of that.
for the most part, the repetition creates neural pathways in your brain, which makes you love something more and more. And a live experience, for some reason, really opens your neural pathways and creates, like, heavy memories that you take with for your life. So the best concerts that you've ever been to are akin to experiences that actually are changing the brain elasticity and changing the way that you perceive the world.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. And do you have any upcoming, like, are you playing out anywhere or dates that you're doing anything, or you're just so busy recording you can't even focus on that?
You know, I don't play any live dates at all. I had played a little bit of TV before the pandemic. No, I'm working on a bunch of records that are going to come out. I'm working on more solo classical, neoclassical music, which is going to come out. I did get asked to do a gig with a friend at Joe's Pub, like, to do one of my own neoclassical gigs. And I'm considering it, but it would be a while from now. But, I mean, that's so low priority for me.
Right.
Because I'm so busy with production, and I love what I do. I mean, eventually I think I probably should go out and play a few gigs.
Yeah, well, it was so much fun. When I first met you, it was when you were performing with Simi Stone. And, you know,
I did tons of gigs with Simi, and it was probably one of the best experiences. You know, it was so fun. Simi's awesome, and the band was super sick, and I met so many people, and Simi and the music got me into the area in a way that I could never have gotten into the area had I just been holed up in a studio. Like, yeah. I met Tony at the Falcon. I mean, I met legends, and God bless him, and it just was such a good experience. You know, the problem now I have is time.
Right. Right.
If I had all the time in the world, I would do everything. But
right.
I sort of make my choices. But, you know, you never know. Things always change.
Things do always change. And as long as you're open to that.
Yeah, and you never know. And maybe something will come along and I'll be like, hey, you know, I want to do that. I think, you know, we're going to end up, the venues are now starting to buzz again. And Bearsville has been renovated. Colony is amazing now. And the Pines and the Falcon and Helsinki. You've got a lot of places. And I'm starting to see now people are booking stuff. People are going out. So my hope is we're going to have the roaring 20s that we just so deserve.
We so deserve it over these last 2 years. The musicians deserve it also. It's been a hard road for many of them, for sure. And,
oh, man, I feel for them all.
Yeah.
And I really do. And, you know, I've gotten very involved in the Recording Academy, and they try to help people a lot, and they try to, you know, I've done some work with them to try to, like, meet with the senators and meet with Congress people to try to make things better. But the one thing that I realized, it was so hard on musicians. I mean, everything. The requirements for touring were very difficult, if you even could get a tour.
Right.
And for a lot of people, the income slipped to really nothing.
Right.
I mean, I have friends that were amazing musicians, just like amazing touring musicians who really, you know, had to start driving Ubers and just do whatever they could just to stay alive.
Just to survive.
So,
yeah.
So, I mean, I'm trying to now be as positive as possible about what the future can bring to us.
Right.
But I also I'd like everybody to be working. I'd like everybody to be making a living. I'd like everybody to, I want everybody to find love, and I want everybody to find peace, and I want all the musicians to be working. And
all the venues to stay open. That's the other thing, right?
All the venues to stay open. And also, but look, the venues offer something very important for people. People, like we were talking about, these tribal experiences. The venues allow you to have those experiences.
Right.
And those experiences are so, they're so precious. And the people that make music, especially when you love music, they're so precious too.
Yeah.
I mean, they're so, so all of it's coming together. And my hope is that, with all the sort of difficulty of COVID and even with divisiveness, like sometimes politically and stuff like that, when people play music, it's kind of amazing how
it's universal language. It really is.
All the fighting kind of falls away. All the
all the BS just stops for a little bit.
All the BS and the beauty can come through us.
Yes.
Your daughter's an extraordinary musician, and I've seen her play when she was younger, and I've been watching. I watch every clip that you post because
David, thank you.
I'm always interested in people who work hard, and I love the path. I think the path is like so incredible to me, and she's turned. I mean, she's world class now, and that's a big.
Thank you.
That's a big thing, and I think the venues are going to survive, and the musicians survive, and for everybody else, it's the roadies.
Right? No, it's the whole thing. The audience, everything, because we're all one, right? We're all one. We all flow off of each other like that, and same thing. I didn't go out for music for a couple of months, and I thought I was losing my mind, just not to have that energy and that beautiful. I mean, anybody can listen to music, yeah, but that live performance, there's something like you said, there's something about it, So, David, you're amazing. Ashokan Dreams is your solo work. I really going to play something off of there. You are just an absolutely incredible musician, producer, all those things that you are. But your talent and what you have brought to the area is something that we have to treasure. And I thank you for doing what you do and releasing this beautiful music to the world and letting some of us know about some of the music that we may not have otherwise heard of. And when you post things like that and, you're sharing your work with us, it just keeps everything going, and it's just you're a treasure. I thank you. I'm a huge fan of your work. As you can tell, I show up at every film thing that you do or anything. If David Barron's out and about, I go support you because you are so worthy of people knowing your work, and I do mean your solo work as well. So yeah, thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you so much, Rita, for first of all, the kind words for me. I'm blushing. But secondly, for supporting a community that I think is a magical and beautiful and unique community, and you are such a big part of that, and we appreciate you more than we can say.
Well, I thank you. I want to spend the next 10 minutes of my show, if I may, playing some of this amazing music that you have released to the world. I encourage listeners to go to your website, thedavidbarron.com. Follow you on all the socials, David Barron, and just watch what this man can do because you are a treasure. I thank you again. I do hope to see you at some point. I thank you more than you know for the kind words about Caroline. And I continue watching what you're doing, David. Thank you for your time, and hope to talk with you soon.
Talk to you soon. Thanks again, Rita.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
91.3 WVKR Independent Radio, Poughkeepsie, New York. This is a work off of David's latest solo work. Let's take a listen to music by David Barron, 91.3 WVKR. 91.3 WVKR, Independent Radio, Poughkeepsie, New York. David Barron, The Han, and that's off of Shokin Dreams. David Barron, my guest today. If you missed part or all of that interview or just want to hear it again, we'll be uploading it tonight on the YouTube channel, as well as YouTube and the LocalMotion Facebook page. Please subscribe to the YouTube page, give a like on the Facebook page, keep up with all the great musicians that seem to come on this show that I'm lucky enough to host on this show. I'm going to just keep playing more music of David Barron's because I really want to turn you listeners onto his incredible music. Here's a song by David, Path of Butterflies, 91.3. Wow. 91.3 WVKR, David Barron. Visit thedavidbarron.com and just follow him on socials too. He, like we just finished talking with David, just produced and worked on the newest Lumineers album, has worked with countless musicians. One can't even list them all because also we're nearing the end of the show. So what we're going to do right now is musical happenings in the hopes that you go support local live music because we've got great venues right here in the Hudson Valley. We'll do this in alphabetical order. I'll say that all venues have COVID safety protocols in place. You can visit their websites for all the details. Let's start with the Bardavon and UPAC. Also, bardavon.org. This Saturday, the Hudson Valley Philharmonic. Sunday, Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. March 16th, the Irish Tenors with the Hudson Valley Philharmonic at UPAC. March 20, Celtic Woman. At Bearsville Theater in Woodstock and bearsvilletheater.com. Tomorrow, March 3rd, Jazz Dinner with Allie Ryerson, Pete Levin, Rich Syracuse, and Jeff Siegel. March 15th at Bearsville, the Psychedelic Furs, benefit for John Ashton. In Woodstock again, Colony in Woodstock, also colonywoodstock.com. Every Wednesday is the Best of the Beer Garden, tonight featuring the Deadbeats duo and Doug Marcus. Thursday, Margie Zintz and the Swing Vipers. Friday, Eric Squindo presents the songs of Dolly Parton. Saturday, Sasami. Sunday, I'm not sure. Every Monday is an open mic. In Beacon at Dogwood, also dogwoodbeacon.com. Tomorrow, Jack Grace. Friday, Rachel Sage. Saturday, Mellow Maine. And Sunday, Black Coffee Blues. At the Falcon in Marlborough and live at thefalcon.com. Tomorrow, Thursday, Sarah Parada. Friday, March 4th with Lee Falco, Will Bryant, Adam Minkoff, and Connor Kennedy. Saturday, Dead Grass and Friends. And Sunday at the Falcon, Tim Reese of the Rolling Stones. Fisher Center at Bard College and fishercenter.bard.edu. March 4th through 6th, the Orchestra Now. March 11, Harvey Firestein.